Good afternoon. Just afternoon, right? And welcome. And sorry for the slight delay, but the other workshop ran a little late. And you know how sometimes for good things you have to wait. So we hope to offer a good thing. Um, oh, woo. The outline of our workshop. We're going to talk about, as it said here, it works, AI, artificial intelligence, and smart city from Europe to Hong Kong. And we will take you through the following brief elements. I'm going to say a few more opening words. Then my colleague Gregory Rell is going to speak about AI and smart city from Europe to Hong Kong. What are the opportunities for European companies and companies from other parts in the world to grow their business in Hong Kong and from Hong Kong, often around Asia, right? And then we have a guest speaker, Mr. Art Almende, who's Mr. Art Nales from Almende. Sorry, Art. I was identifying you fully with the company here. Who's going to speak about AI and robotics from, in this case, a European, a Dutch perspective with considerable experience in internationalization, but more about that later. Then we'll get the two gentlemen in a bit of a fireside chat. It's like there's no fire, but close your eyes. There's a bar stool chat, right? We hope that works as well. And then Q&A with you, the audience, right? Before I dive into a little spiel about what is in Invest Hong Kong and why do we do this workshop, one idea, if you only take one idea from this session, I would say everybody, every company needs an Asia strategy. Everybody needs an Asia plan. Where is the growth in the world at this moment? Clearly in Asia, right? We're talking 5-6% in China, we're talking 5-6% in Indonesia, and every single Asian country is actually on a growth path. And those are figures that we can only dream of in Europe, right? And even though we work for Invest Hong Kong, the investment promotion agency from the Hong Kong government, really our message is always make an Asia plan, go there, travel, visit the trade fair, talk to companies, check it out for yourself, right? And then, and if Asia is not for you, that's fine as well, but you should at least check it out. You want to know what's happening there, right? Who are we? Investment promotion agency, that means we're a government department and we help companies, foreign companies, set up a presence in Hong Kong. The good thing for those who are a bit challenged by the column, the good thing is that our services are free since we're a government department. This type of organization exists around the world. In the Netherlands, it's called the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. In Canada, it's called Invest in Canada. But it's really always you invest in you, and with that, you also support that economy, right? How do we work? We have 34 overseas offices. Every overseas office helps companies from a country or countries. And we here represent the Brussels office, and Greg is from our Berlin office. And then sector teams in our head office, which means that every company is defined by where you're from and what do you do. And with that, we hope to give the best possible support. And we help from small to big, all types of companies. And then if we look at INT and AI, two of the clear focus sectors that Hong Kong wants to grow in are biotech, robotics and AI, smart city and big data AI. So that is a little bit where we come from. These are my contact details for anybody who wants to know more. And that leads me to the presentation of my colleague Greg Rell. Greg, stand up and I introduce you in a few words. Greg is the deputy head of the innovation and technology team with a lot of experience in biotech and other high-tech areas. Greg's Asia experience is mainly focused on Japan, 10 years in Japan. So he's a man with ample experience. and he'll share with you the smart city possibilities. Greg,
thank you so much. Thank you very much for the introduction, Paula. Thank you. So, very welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to give you today a kind of journey about Hong Kong as a vibrant city, but also about the applications, solutions, the seats and needs. And today I chose the topic of smart city. Last year we had a topic medical AI where we talk about drug discovery, drug development. Today it will be a broader aspect. So when you see the first picture, I just compared always to New York because Hong Kong is also like a city never sleeps. This is the skyline of Hong Kong. It's a very vibrant city. I see it also as a bridge between the East and West and has many things to give. I will outline you how Hong Kong can help you for landing in Asia as a very specific testbed and springboard. So as Paula mentioned, we are from the government, our services are free of charge, we are professional, and I belong to the innovation technology team covering also AI and smart city. You see, normally I come more from the biomedical life science area, but based on life science biomedical, I was diving more into the AI area because of medical AI to find new solutions and inviting specific companies to Hong Kong from Europe. So as Paula already mentioned, we have over 30 offices in the world. You can approach us everywhere in America, Europe, and Asia. But for me, important is, for example, I lived 10 years in Japan, and I was flying very often to Hong Kong because it was so very promising and vibrant and interesting. You are really in the heart of Asia. So when you see Hong Kong is very central placed in Asia, you can reach the 50% of the world's population within 5 hours flight. This is a snapshot about Hong Kong, about the advantages. You know, there was a kind of British rule and establishment. So I would see Hong Kong as a very specific global hub, a bridge between East and West, superior with standards and services. And then we have a very elegant tax regime, and we have topics and services also, let me say, about the leading IP system that intellectual property is very vital to protect. Then I already mentioned that you can approach Asia. And in the backyard of Hong Kong, you have actually the Greater Bay Area, an area with 11 cities like Shenzhen, Macau, Foshan, with now over 80 million. It will reach 100 million population. Further, it's very interesting to know that we are not only a kind of very vibrant startup ecosystem or scale-up ecosystem with Science Park and other centers, but actually we are a very specific funding hub. We are the third biggest financial hub in the world after New York and London. This is very important because when your company is landing and utilizing Hong Kong as a testbed and springboard, you want to scale up your company. And therefore it's very vital. For example, I come from Germany, I live in Germany, everything is good, but often the funding has some issues. I will tell you more in detail. Smart City Hong Kong. So this is a kind of short outline in a nutshell what we can touch. When you think about Smart City, this is very familiar with you. In Europe, we have many leaders, for example, in the Netherlands, Scandinavian countries about Smart City, but it's really to improve the life and living of the population. So when we talk, for example, smart mobility, it's about e-mobility, it's about the loading station, the grid system. It's also to lower the carbon print. So, and then we have also another approach when we talk about green transport, that we say we're electrifying now buses and ferries in Hong Kong. And then we have also an approach about the smart airport, because it's not only about the transfer between the tourist, the guest flying to Hong Kong, but it's also to optimize the system, the services for the guests, and also to lower the carbon print in Hong Kong. When we talk about smart living, there are now many examples, but I like smart living because of a new approach. We have now a kind of new age. We call it the aging society, the silver population. We have more elderly people, and often they don't want to rely only on about the family. They say, you know what? I live in a special house with apartments and everything is smart. How can I order my food? Maybe the fridge has a sensor, or maybe I get my medicine. I get many things. Also, even telemedicine is very important, the diagnosis from far away. And also about the kind of early warning system. Let's say if you're old, you're over 80, and suddenly you fall in your apartment. Then you get a kind of triggering alarm and maybe some helpers and doctors coming in time to save you. This is smart living, means more connecting data, more connecting services. Smart environment is, of course, this for sure about the decarbonization. It means better energy fields, green energy, and also about the waste management we have in place in Hong Kong. Smart government, this is for sure that we have more open data, serving more the public and private sector, but also to create open data for getting more studies and solutions in Hong Kong. Smart people, this I really like. My son is 17 years old, and I must say, really there's a new age because they are more tech savvy, they understand better the things. When I was 17, I don't know virtual reality and other things and AI and solutions, but they're really living this now. And I think I'm betting on the young generation to creating new solutions. I really like the medical side. For example, when we have aging society, we talk about Parkinson, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. So it's not that the people will become 200 years old, but you have to make the quality of life in the last year better. And this is also important for the early detection. So when you have AI or medical AI, you find diagnosis 10 or 15 years before you make the intervention. And this is not only diagnostic or diagnosis, it's also about treatment, maybe finding new molecules, medicine in the future. So I like that we educate our people to create better solutions. And it's not only about Hong Kong, Asia. Actually, we should connect the dots with Europe and America to share the best practice. Then, of course, smart economy, we have many solutions. We're optimizing the R&D, welcoming the best companies with their products and services. But I really like also some very specific approach in the fintech area. My wife is Taiwanese, and they don't pay with paper. They pay with a phone. So when you have fintech solutions, actually Hong Kong is one of the leaders in the world in the fintech area. We have actually a fintech festival in November where 70,000 participants come. It's a hybrid event, in person and digital. You will say new pay solutions. So I think when we team up with European companies and stakeholders, let's share how about the best practices and products in this field. Of course, I already triggered a climate action plan, so we want to make the exit, let's say, in 2050, maybe earlier than Singapore and New York. But this is very important because we have to optimize. It is not only about the population and the citizens, it's really like give an impact for the world because if I say the pictures from Maui in Hawaii, this was really heartbreaking. And now we have something in Europe, even in Canary Islands and so on. So we have to think to give an impact, to give better solutions for the future society because we have also family and kids. This is again the kind of the carbon neutrality by 2050. It's about the e-mobility. It's about the green transportation, as I already triggered, and waste management. But very interesting is, as I mentioned, we're the third biggest financial hub in the world. We have actually means and funding to support companies in this field. For example, with the Hong Kong Exchange green bond market and $7 billion US. This is already the thing with electronic vehicles because we have to get better cars, better grid system and loading stations because it's very demanding. When you have a normal car and you're in a subtropical area, they're using the air conditioning in the car. So we have to have better cars and better solutions. And therefore you can utilize, as when you're in this market, Hong Kong as a test bed and springboard to apply this in Asia. This is about smart hospital. You can imagine that in Asia, often you have bigger hospitals. Sometimes they have 3,000 beds or 5,000 beds. And the most important thing is that the doctors and the nurses and the other caregivers have to focus on the most important works. They should not do this kind of similar work. So therefore, we utilize the AI for monitoring and early detection about things. The old-fashioned way was you have paper. You go to 300 patients, say he has this and that, and so on. And then there's maybe a night shift, and then the other doctor's coming. No, it's better if you have monitoring system. Maybe you have a kind of tool or watch to check your health. So smart hospital means new solutions, new pathways to help the patient in real time. It's also not only for detection, it's also for medication, etc. And then this is a kind of value chain. When you talk about healthcare, it's always about prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation, because every government wants that people not collapse. They want people living long and have a kind of better life, healthy life in the now and future. So this is about the hospital authority. So I will not go in this in detail, but what I like is the new approach of telemedicine. Can you imagine that the pandemic was actually a pusher in digitalization and telemedicine? Because we wanted to try to avoid the human contact. So how about that people get a kind of wearable or other things or other tools, and then you meet maybe the doctor not so often, but you have a kind of communication with your doctor and say, you know what, your vital signs is not good. Maybe you have diabetes or there's some cardiovascular problem, and this we need because some people maybe live remote or don't want to go to doctors. So the pandemic really pushed the digitalization, also telemedicine. When we talk about hospitals, it's not only about the patient, it's also about the patient population that you can create new data. We call it cohort studies. You make samples from healthy and not healthy volunteers and creating new data for new diagnostica and new medicine. Therefore, I find this very, very promising. Our smart airport is one of my last slides about smart city. Of course, you have this kind of fancy smart airport. For me, it's like Star Trek Next Generation. Many sensors, you know what? They already know where you are. You walk this gate 25 or gate 3 or whatever. They say maybe we need not so much light there, maybe less light, more light. But it's also to get a better transport and optimization of services. And then I saw very fancy things. Can you see the robots there in the left side in the corner? When we had the pandemic, they even helped for the that everything is clean and disinfection and so on. So we implanted more solutions for the airport. Yes. These are examples. Therefore, we called this the session the pathway from Europe to Hong Kong. We have companies already interested in Hong Kong. This is Tommy World. They make a kind of very smart display in the city. It's very important. It's not only for the commercial part, it's also for the announcement. Let's say we have a typhoon or a tsunami or whatever. You say the early warning, saying, guys, it's like the Blade Runner 2049 movie. Hey, we show you this is important for you. The other company is IS from Belgium, and I like it very much because this is for blind person or maybe an infected person with the eye when they go in the city through the traffic. So they have a kind of smartphone device software and saying, I connect with the traffic lights and so on. So maybe they cannot hear so good or not see so good, but with their wearable, they can say, you know what, now I can pass the street, and they can kind of logistics. And this system is even working without Wi-Fi. And they have a huge interest to place in Hong Kong as a special hub in Asia. Now comes fundraising, one of my favorite talks. The thing is, how can I say, when I say they're the third biggest financial hub in the world, we just have a population of 7.5 million people. But you can see this is a city never sleeps and reinvent itself and say, you know what, we want to invest and reinvest in projects. So several companies, for example, I'm from Germany, say, okay, we have technology companies, they want to raise money. But some companies, they find a very top market and partners in Hong Kong. And when they went IPO, go to the stock market, they could raise an approach about valuation about $500 million US. So, and this is possible in Hong Kong. And then they created a kind of Chapter 18As for biotech companies. You can even go pre-revenue IPO. And I'll give you an example. That there was a startup company called Prenetics. They did, during COVID, the PCR test is not so rocket science, right? And my friend from AstraZeneca said, hey, when COVID is over, the PCR test is not interesting anymore, so maybe they will crash. But they raised $1.7 billion US IPO and bought 3 diagnostic companies. So this is the pathway in Hong Kong. If you have the right context, you can do a certain journey in the region. This is exactly the same about IPOs. You see this with the pre-revenue 18A chapter. From 2017, it's increasing, and lots of projects. And this is one of my final slides about the funding. Hong Kong is really dedicated to jumpstart, to proliferate activities, and the smart city will grow in other areas in the innovation technology area as well. The last information about that, we create now a greater fund. It's called HKIC, and it will be about $9 billion US only for technology companies. So, and now I addressed venture capital companies saying, how about syndicate investment, creating a fund of funds that we really can scale the companies if you land in Hong Kong. Greater Bay Area already triggered that, so you see Hong Kong there in the center in red, but there are more 11 centers, so it is a population about over 80 million, and you cannot see it only as a working bench. It's really a pool of talent and also approach to other interests and markets in the region. And this is about the infrastructure. So this is a very quick one-pager about the science park. I call it the City of City. It's a science park with over 1,000 companies. So when you land there and you get, for example, the incubation fund, you get non-dilutive money. It's you don't have to pay it back. You just have to pass a test. It's for 3 or 4 years. You get an office for free, and you can mingle and mix with the experts there, and maybe creating new business model for Asia. And now, why not doing things bigger? Now we team up with Shenzhen. We call this the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation Technology Park. And this is a park where you find all industries placed. And we have an interest. We're not narrow-minded. We want that you scale up in Asia, that you really grow and spread the wings in Asia. So Hong Kong is the testbed and springboard, but you can team up with us in Shenzhen for your activities in the region. Summary is, talk to us. As Paula mentioned, we are professional. We do the service free of charge, so we can help you with the planning, setup, launch, and expansion. And if you have requests about the markets and key opinion leaders, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. So, introduce.
Thanks, Greg. And now you probably think, yeah, that's the government. They always make it sound nice, and then in reality, it's still difficult. But here to help. From the government, we now go to the entrepreneurs, the people who really do it. And our next speaker is Mr. Aart Nales, he's partner at Almende, has been involved with high-tech startups, high-tech companies since the 90s, right, Aart? Also a venture builder and an absolute crack and specialist in AI and robotics. Plus, I've read microchip development, but that's not for today. And Aart will take you on the journey of a real entrepreneur and also sharing how you have experience in helping companies go international. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me see if I have the right button. Oh, no, that's not the right button. It's not coming back.
Right.
Yeah, it's the right button. Yeah, it is the right button. Okay. A little bit about Almende. Almende, the commons, but it's the old Dutch word for it. It is that which is of us all. It is the part that we organize together. So that's what our interest is as well. We are a for-profit research institute out of Rotterdam. Most of our startups are also in Rotterdam. We focus on all technology that is needed to make people self-organize. So the idea is that you organize without a manager telling you what to do. That you are basically able to do your own work, but also work with others without having all kinds of rules set upon you, but to figure out what rules work for you. And to do this, we do not only do research, we typically attract a lot of research money out of Europe. But if we have done some of those investigations, when we've done some of our research, we set it into companies. Today I'm going to talk about one specific company that we are currently launching and that we're currently setting up. And within that, one specific example that shows how you can take a real-world problem and solve it with some approaches of a mix of AI and robotics. So that's what I'm talking about. Almende has companies in health, communication, and robotics and IoT, and we're currently also looking into microchip chip development and then mainly on the design side, but that's still on the research part. We have about 130 people spread over the Netherlands and Indonesia. I set up the office in Indonesia, but I've also set up offices in India, and I've set up an office before in Argentina. But we have closed those offices because we grew the office in Indonesia pretty quickly. And in Argentina, I must say, we had some problems with the economic, how do you say that, directions of the government. The stability wasn't all that great. Company I want to talk to you about today, and the examples I'm going to give you today, is one of our daughter companies, which is called Asimovo. It is obviously a play on the idea of Asimov, the guy who described the 3 rules of robots and what they, the whole Foundry books. The idea that we have here is that Currently, if you build a robot, the most expensive part of building that robot is to test it. It is to build prototypes and to test it. You may now and then also experience some problems with getting the right parts and being able to already find those parts. So there is a reason to actually say, can I simulate the robot? And can I use that simulation, a very close to reality simulation, call it a digital twin of the robot and the environment, and can I use that to train the robot? And if I can do that, what might be the plus side of it? Well, we found that there's enough reasons to do it. One of the main reasons at the moment is that robots are no longer these small, cute things, but they are becoming more interesting, bigger, and people expect them to be safe, they expect them to be smart, they expect them to be able to interact. So what you get is you get bigger teams. So this whole idea of building a robot is no longer something that 1 or 2 engineers are doing with hands-on on the hardware. It is becoming a team effort. So what we're building here is the idea that you can build large teams of people that can build together on a robot. So it's distributed, it is basically based all on open source technology, but we have connected it to a complete cloud environment that you can grow to whatever crazy size you want, so that you can run your simulations every time you want it. Because if you've ever tested anything with a robot, there's one thing that you really hate, that is running after that robot while you are testing it. If you can do that virtually with some scenarios and you can do it while you are at home enjoying your free time, then that is a much better setup. So this is basically what we're doing there. Have I said anything to do here? Yes. Asimovo currently, oh, I shouldn't put my hand there. Asimovo currently has about 15 people and it is mainly run out of the Netherlands. There is a development team in Indonesia. Okay. What more is there? Well, we are involved in a lot of European projects, and one of the areas that we are looking in, if we look at Smart City, is the smart transport part. And for quite a while now, the let's say the future of drones in smart cities has been, how do you say that? It has been hyped. But and there is a reason for that, because there's actually a pretty good reason to use these drones, but what I want to get into is what is still stopping it from happening. So if you look at why would you basically try to train robots and drones for these type of environments, then there's quite good reasons. I wrote down a few. You can train your AI models pretty quickly. It is easy to rapidly iterate, and as I said, you can do it at night while you're not there. It is entirely safe. Nobody gets killed in the simulation. Huge cost saving. It's scalable. The data generation is fine. You can benchmark with others. There's a lot of reasons to do it this way. So if you want this drone to run, and if you want it to be safe for a smart city, then what you would like to have is a pretty good idea of what the city looks like and what these drones look like. Now, if you look at a real city, I hope this is the nice one. Oh, I think I mixed 2 slides here. Well, anyway, the kind of activities that you now see that drones are being used for in cities are for delivery, inspection, surveillance, mapping and surveying, emergency response. There is loads of stuff that you can use drones for, but they need to be safe. Nobody wants to walk over a shopping street and have a drone fall on their head. And you need to be actually sure that this works. The way that drones are being introduced at the moment is as mini airplanes. And the way that security is handled is also as a mini airplane. And the idea is that if you have a drone and you want it to run in an urban environment, that the drone will basically tell a what they call an unmanned traffic controller. They tell it, oh, I'm now in this area and I will abide by your rules. And the unmanned traffic controller will basically say, the space is clear for you, you can move ahead. Which is something that came out of avionics. It came out of the airline industry. And the airline industry has a big advantage. If you add up the number of airplanes over the whole world, and you let them all fly at the same time, there's still space enough that they don't hit each other. But if you go to these drones, and you see what are the interesting parts for drones, you can see it here, they seem to overlap a lot. So you get a lot of these drones in small areas. The other problem is that anybody can actually buy a drone and play with it. So what will happen if you have a drone that is not playing by the rules? What if you have a rogue drone? Well, then it's nice that you have the unmanned traffic controller telling you, hey, you have to go to the left, but if you don't even tell it that you're entering that space and you're not really abiding by the rules, the whole concept is falling down. So the idea of top-down rules doesn't work. So then we are looking at, can we do a bottom-up rule? So we did that in a project that was called Ada Corsa. I have to say this because we got the money from Europe, so we have to tell it. And we basically looked at examples. The unmanned traffic control, I see that as the traffic lights. It's basically we all abide by the traffic lights because it's in our own best interest. But you can actually run without traffic light. Now I hope that next slide works also to start the video. Yeah, this is a small movie. It's from Hanoi. It is actually an old example. I had to look it up again because I used it before. It's not great quality, but it shows something really interesting. That is, if you don't have a traffic light, people can still cross a street and they don't hit each other. I can't run it again, but I can show it again afterwards if you want to. There's more examples of this, but it's really interesting to see that as human beings, we were trained from small kids onwards not to hit other people. I'm close to the central station, the square in Rotterdam. If it's busy, there can be 400 people on the square at the same time. Nobody hits each other. Now, how can this happen? It is because we have traffic rules in ourselves. We don't need the traffic lights there. Can we use those same rules to let drones fly? Because if a drone itself can actually be safe by itself, it's much better. And then what do we need to actually train those drones to show that behavior? And how do we test that? Well, I already told you about that great environment that we built. I won't go into it too much further because if you're interested, you'll find us. But the idea is that you need a drone to actually to learn a little bit. You basically want a bit of learning that controls the drone itself. So in this case, we use the deep Q learning approach. You need an environmental setting. You need these drones around it. This is a very schematic setup. There's a reward function. And you basically try to take the observed state. In the beginning, that's human interference. You take a look at what is happening and you learn from it. So in this case, what are we doing? We are basically saying to a drone, go from A to B. That's what we start with. Or maybe I can better show that on the next slide. I hope I have them in the right order. Yeah. So we basically broke down what do you need to learn a drone to make it safe and then scale it up. So the first idea is drone just needs to be able to go up and down. That I think is pretty basic. Second thing is, it's nice if it doesn't hit into the wall, so avoid static objects. Then avoid random objects, because not all objects that you see are there on purpose. They can just come about, somebody can drop something, or there can be something new. Avoid a moving object. This is now becoming the part where we are getting closer to Hanoi. Then you would like it, because a drone is not the same as a human walking, it has a 3D approach. You want it to maneuver a structure. So we basically broke that down into, if we put the drone in a box, and we put one window in the box, it should be able to find its way out. And then we have the idea, what if we have already a drone that just wants to come in? And if we have that, we're saying if that can be done by 2 drones on this side, all we need after that is scaling it up. So that's what we did. We trained this. We built all these examples, and we built that all in that environment. We scaled it, and after training it about 50,000 times, we had this, let's say, this basic behavior working. And we're now scaling it bit by bit, because our cluster, we're still building it out. But at the moment, we are at 50 drones in a small area that don't hit each other anymore, or almost don't hit each other, but it's a simulation. We're still, it's still fine if they hit a little bit. And we're building that up. So the idea is eventually, and that this kind of behavior, this is still shown 2 drones. I'll show a small movie. This is taken directly out of the development environment, so it's not a beautiful movie, but it shows the idea. These are the drones. I don't know, is there a laser pointer on this? I won't try it, but we'll probably go to the next slide. But these are the 2 drones that are trying at the same time to move through the same window. So let's take a look at that. There it goes. And then the nice things around it is basically the area that it should not hit each other. So it's not the exact where the wings are, it's just basically the area of interference. So that's what it's trying to avoid, and what it's taking notice of. So and then it basically learns bit by bit, okay, here I can pass the other one. If I'm a bit higher, the other one is a bit lower, we can pass. So this very basic behavior, if you scale it up and you make it big, becomes interesting, because now we can actually, if you go back to the example of Hanoi, we can actually try Hanoi type interference with drones. So the question is this actually possible? Can you make it work? Well, the answer, yes, you probably can. So this is the example, one company, one drone, the AI example that we're currently using. In it, we do a lot with all kinds of different types of AI that we probably will discuss in a bit. This is what I had to say for today. Thank you very much.
Okay, can I invite both of you for the bar stool chat in our variation on the fireside chat? So I'll give you gentlemen like 10 minutes to talk to each other, and then you have to be ready for the audience. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Greg.
That was so nice, your outline, because it's very practical. And of course, I have an interest that we talk, of course, about Hong Kong and Asia. So if I ask you about your solutions, how you see the current trends and future in your sector, AI robotics, also for Asia. And number two, what would you need if you would land in Hong Kong and place in Asia? Oh, you already have experience with Indonesia.
Yeah. So what I set up, the first time I went to a foreign country to set up a company was in Argentina. And what I did there is I set up a development office for our own IT services. So we didn't have anything, we couldn't find enough people in the Netherlands. We wanted highly trained people. There's a whole bunch of highly trained people in Argentina, so there was a good mix. I speak Spanish, that helps too. So we ended up in Mendoza. And then you basically start to figure out what is it that I need if I open an office there. So I went with the idea of a suitcase. I actually got an MBA student, so somebody already finished their master's. They were doing an MBA and they needed a special interest part. He had already spent 6 months in Argentina, and I asked him, can you figure out if I take an empty suitcase, what does it need to have in there in order to open the business? And next to that, I started to realize myself, what is it that I need from that business? So apart from all the legal stuff that would be in the box and the money that might be in the box and the contracts that I might need, and then what would I want? So the idea that I wanted was I needed good people. That was the start there. So what I quickly found is that in any country, you cannot get the first people in unless you get some relationships going. The essential part is get some relationships started. And none of these relationships are typically very difficult. They can be friends, they can be colleagues, but you need some introductions to get started, because without a minimum of trust, nobody gets through the door. On the formal part, when it came to Argentina, it was really interesting that there is which I never expected, but there is an official contract between the Netherlands and Argentina that you can set up a company in 6 weeks. So I was amazed how quickly that went. But then after that, it took 3.5 months to open a bank account. So the whole idea of a quick setup was then somewhat stopped. The next time that I set up a company was in Indonesia. And in Indonesia, it was a different thing. In Indonesia, we already had established a good working relationship with the TU Delft. And you have I forgot the official name, but it's something like I think it's called Bandung Institute of Technology, BIT, it could be BTI. But they are very close, because it was actually set up in the time that the Dutch were still in Indonesia. They set up a university in Bandung. So we started to talk first with some people in Delft if there were still connections. There weren't, but we got some personal connections, and then we started to look in Bandung. And the formal part there was a lot harder. It was harder actually to figure out what the rules were. So I can see that having somebody who can tell you what the rules are really helps. We tried to find it all out ourselves. That took us a while longer. But once we were there, then it became actually easier, because then we, lucky shot, but we hit up on a Chinese guy that was a Catholic. And it turned out that the Chinese in Bandung, they are really a lot of the entrepreneurs there. And they have, through the church, all kinds of connections. So because of that, we quickly build out the company. So that's the 2 experiences I've had so far.
Very nice, very nice. I like it a lot, because you have already experienced with Asia, because we have often very good contacts and clients want to approach. But very important, what you underlined is the relationship and understanding.
Yes.
Because if I may say so, if a company has to first nurture the company itself in, let's say in Europe first, you have to digest your home market first, and then you have more capital and resources to go abroad. If a company is doing it too quick, maybe it's fitting, maybe not, but I would recommend first create your business, and when you want to scale up, maybe Hong Kong can be a place, a test bed or springboard for Asia, and also to scale in entire Asia Pacific area. So it's not only about money, it's about relationship, understanding. But I think I see Hong Kong like a very demanding place. The people are very sophisticated. They rebuild themselves, the buildings, the things, and so on, business models. We have Greater Bay Area and the backyard, and of course mainland China. But it's not only about Hong Kong, China. I would say embrace other Asian countries. For example, Japan, a population of 127 million. Recently had clients, they opened an office in Hong Kong because of the setup. They say they're leading with the arbitration. You know, there's a common law, there are experts and so on. It's about funding. And then they approached Southeast Asia because they said, why not going to Indonesia? There's a population of 200 million, increasing with many business models and services and so on. So I think you can make a direct start in Hong Kong for the market, or you can utilize Hong Kong as a hub for doing your business in Asia.
I think you're right there. I think there's another part that is important that we found in Argentina. As I said, we closed the office in Argentina with great regret. But when we opened it, there was an inflation in Argentina of 8%, which is nothing strange. That's like in a lot of countries, you can have inflations of those numbers. But the government of Argentina decided that the currency would not float. So we would keep it pegged. With 8% and starting with relatively low salaries, that's not a problem. But the moment that you start to see the inflation going up, and the next year was 32%, and we had a year of 35%, then you get a problem because you're a nice official company. You have to pay everything with the official exchange rate. The people aren't even that happy because all you can do is you can basically balance them on inflation, but giving them even salary raises on top of that, that's getting harder. So we actually got into a situation that stability is also a thing that is really important. So I guess that on the Hong Kong side, having such an open approach to how money flows, that would really help, because the reason that we left Argentina was the money couldn't flow, and that was tricky. The Indonesian part is a lot better in that regard. It is more stable, but also more open. So we can have, there's also an inflation there of, I think, 6% or something. It goes up, it goes down, but the money goes with it. So it can take a month, it can take 2 months, but then you see the fluctuation. So overall, that's fine for us. We know what to expect.
That's very interesting, because first we talked about relation understanding, but when you underlined about stability, it's very amazing. For example, I'm German, I live in Berlin, and my wife is in Taiwan, and we unified my family again, the Asian-German family and so on. But my wife was very astonished about the situation. For example, when you're in Germany, like because of the war and energy crisis and so on. So this has an impact on companies. Let's say they want to go to Asia tomorrow, but they have their own issues. They say, I feel not good because the government takes too much taxpayers' money, or the energy crisis and so on. And I cannot say Hong Kong is the center of the universe, but when I went to Hong Kong, I was so amazed. The unemployment rate is nearly like zero. It was stable in its growth rate. And regardless of any reason, during pandemic or after pandemic, the growth rate is very high. There's capital, and I like the skill set in Hong Kong. So it's really like they're trained, they're international. I think stability is very important. And if you can grow your company in Europe, great. But if you need additional support and you can do it over a hub in Asia like Hong Kong, I think it would be very interesting to discuss with you. Yeah, stability is very important. The final part is for me human resources.
The thing that we had, I mean, we were obviously the whole group is 130 people. So if we enter a market, there's not a lot of people that will be feeling, challenged by us. That's if we hire 10 people there, that's like, yeah, that's 10 people. So the HR part for us, relatively simple. What was difficult is the cultural gap that you have with working with people. talking Argentina, it was hard in Argentina to do performance reviews. They were so distrusting of any type of authority that a performance review was something that, I'm not going to tell you how my colleague is doing. Or it's like, no, we don't do that. It's like we're one group. And that doesn't help because, in Europe, we're not that individualistic, but we do like to actually reward the people that are doing good. And we'd like to basically, at a certain point, say goodbye to people that aren't doing that great. You want to get the talent. So that was an interesting part. The performance reviews in Indonesia were, on the other hand, really easy because they were really open on that. But it was really difficult to get them to talk to what they perceived as their bosses. So if we had a project meeting, and that's obviously online, you don't fly in all the time, it was really hard to them to actually to let them to speak up. Tell me what you really think. So that took a long while to get them to do that. If you basically show that it is okay and that should be trust and that you actually value all that feedback and not as we value your feedback in a nice little sentence for customer support, but as a real thing, it's like, show that then it works. So that was on that part.
This is an excellent example because I must tell this, because you can always see different regions and you can always find in different areas pluses and minuses. So because I lived in Asia, my wife is also Asian, I have a very interest to compare like Germany, Europe and Asia and so on. And then I went to Munich and I found a biotech company which is working with Wuxi Biologics from China. And they were champions. They made a kind of joint venture, everything is great. But the leading CEO told me the story about the working ethics or style, And of course I'm German and we're not so top or whatever, but often in Germany we say, I know it better, or I tell you now, And then they had the Chinese team, and I cannot generalize in Asia, but it's something also about losing face. So sometimes you cannot be so direct. So you will learn it in Asia, swim with the fishes and see the senior people and so on. But you can find a way to take the best from both sides. So you make a contract in Asia and it's still counting. But when there's an issue, they're still flexible to shape it. And the other guys say, no, we made it this and that and so on. So I like this as a kind of flexibility. So if you find the right partners in Europe and in Asia, and you made a joint venture or you made a special team in a unit, you can be champion and so on. This is a nice experience in the now and future. Now we come to the question and answer session.
Anybody from the audience who wants to ask the gentleman any question? I have a mic here.
Actually, I see in the audience a person we talked about Saudi Arabia, about Riyadh and so on, and he gave a very, very nice outline how we can share best practices. Can you underline this?
Let me give you the mic so everybody can hear and learn from you.
What we did in what we work on in Saudi Arabia now, so it's like for the visual pollution in the country. So one of the projects that we are working on is to how to take So, when we would like to detect the visual pollution, Riyadh city is becoming very fast regarding the building the city itself. So, for building that, we try to detect the visual pollutions around the city. So, what we did is to take cars and go around the city, the whole around city. Then we detect the visual pollutions inside. So this was one of the biggest projects that we work on. These cars are going around weekly, by week, and we analyze this data, and then we take the picture of the visual pollution in that case.
And how can we work together?
Yeah, so for this part, this is one of the biggest city that we are working on. But this is just the beginning in the Saudi Arabia. What we are counting now is how to scale this out for all the major cities in Saudi Arabia. So one of the things that we can work is how to find these problems, how to increase the accuracy of this works in the city.
Thank you very much. Additional questions, comments? Yes, please.
Yeah, could you pass the mic? Thanks.
I'm curious regarding technical projects with regards to a smart city and everything. In any technical implementation, there's always a bit of an error margin, as in how much of the technology actually works. And what I've seen in these types of projects over the years is that sometimes that means you have to start really small. Is there a small possibility in a city like Hong Kong? I mean, you can't do automated parking systems for just one street. Or even that would be an enormous street compared to any other world city. So are there extra barriers there for really going forward with technology?
Yes.
That you're over that first bump?
Yes, of course, because I'm very interested in several solutions, and even the government gave some outlines. It's always about seeds and needs.
Yeah.
For example, let's say I dream, like, okay, I'm a very rich person, I want this, I want my ice cream tomorrow, I want to have everything ready tomorrow with the e-mobility and the grid system, the loading station, okay? But it cannot happen tomorrow. So you have, I cannot say bidders, but you have several technology companies that give solutions. And they say, maybe we have the best resources to make this happen, and then there's maybe funding from private sector, and so on. So maybe there are 2 or 3 bidders, or maybe competitors, but they give the solution, and the government say, okay, maybe we have to adjust a kind of framework. Well, you know,
I think what he's looking for is pilot projects that are smaller in scale that eventually could run in the whole of Hong Kong.
Yes. That's
if you follow your example,
yeah.
I'm guessing that companies would have to sign up for something like providing ice cream within one city. What do you call it?
Kind of
one city council area or something.
Kind
could be.
Yes.
Which,
but when we talk about smaller projects, for example, I talk to real estate persons. You know, they're building. I mean, this is a city rebuilt themselves every year and so on. And then we found out that we lacking the young professionals in the construction site. They maybe they want to become banker or whatever. So and they said we have to rely more on robotics and AI. And now they're using drones. I mean, this is not rocket science, but drones for measuring the buildings, if there's tension and so on, how to rebuild and so on. So there are pilot projects. Also maybe
one building.
One building, exactly. And there's also the science park. There's also the university. It's like a applied science.
There are a lot of adding to what Greg says. They're on the terrain of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. They do pilot projects. They've done pilot project with autonomous vehicles, you know. So there is definitely the possibility to do pilots, right? And also, if your solution is for the built environment, to take one or a few buildings. So yeah, definitely, because everybody realizes that you might still be developing, right? But that you need to try it out in that process. Yeah, that exists. Anybody for a last question? We know we stand between you and lunch. That's not a good place to stand in. So a last question, yeah.
Maybe one from me is, do you guys provide a hand-holding, sort of like a process to apply funding or set up in Hong Kong? Do we have to work out everything before we move out there, or do we land in Hong Kong first and then ask for more help?
There's, for example, if you check our homepage, there's a kind of like I call it landing page. The services, for example, also we give you the first initial inputs about secretary companies and so on. They're helping like to set up a kind of a limited company within a week, and also with a bank and so on. And then we connect to key opinion leaders, champions, Science Park, Cyberport. And funding, we will not do it directly, but we can say there are certain individuals, there's a network of angel investors, VCs, and specific family offices. And family offices recently, of course, I can say they already made their money. They have very specific interest because they got a new kind of, I cannot say branding, but it's a kind of thing. It's called ESG, the environmental, social, governmental thing. So if you have a project for green technology, clean tech, etc., related for the good cause, I think there are good chances that you get an investor. Yeah.
Maybe adding also, I love Greg how he puts the ball on the dot, right, and then I can try to score a goal. There's also something in addition to what Greg says. What we often will advise companies is to say, okay, what is it? What sector are you in? Is there any relevant event coming up? For example, Hong Kong FinTech Week is coming up. We have a number of client companies or companies that are thinking about Hong Kong, that we give them a ticket. We sometimes can organize them to have a speaking slot, right? And we often, if you're talking startups and scale-ups, very interesting options are to think about an accelerator, right? Not because you don't know how to run your business, but as you probably all know, that accelerators love to introduce their alumni to investors, right? And we've seen this work a couple of times. An example that comes to my mind is an Irish fintech that entered into an accelerator. They found not only an investor, but also via the contacts of the accelerator, a joint venture partner in mainland China. So we try to, like Greg says, what we cannot do because of government department and the services are free, we cannot do your entire BD, business development, but we can help at a couple of points saying, oh, if you come to, also upcoming is a Start Me Up Hong Kong Festival, if you go there, there's one day devoted to health, the Health Summit. Go there, maybe we can, if we know you're going, we can try to set up a face-to-face meeting with the relevant sector team, and a couple more meetings in a week like that. So we'll try to, help you get going. So I wouldn't want to say it's hand-holding entirely from the beginning to you setting up, but we'll hold your hand enough so as to make a difference.
Because as I understand, some of the accelerator programs or science park criteria or entry levels are sometimes quite strict and high, and we don't necessarily have that knowledge or.
So, for example, 2 years ago, we managed to get one of our clients, right? If I say our, it's my 12 countries, a Spanish company that does an espresso machine for pet food. The pet also wants the food warm, whatever. And they got into the global acceleration program of the science park, but there was what we know well, the people of the science park. So there were some questions from the Spanish company, like, we don't quite understand this. So we go to the science park saying, they don't quite understand it. Can you help? So that type of links we can do. So I would say very much we're a facilitator, right? You as an entrepreneur need to have the vision, right? And the big plan, but then we can hopefully facilitate.
So last one from me, very last one. I know there's also Cyberport,
Yes.
but you haven't mentioned Cyberport. Is there is Cyberport not on the agenda at the moment?
No,
Or
Cyberport is more software, and this Hong Kong Science and Technology Park is more R&D heavy companies across the board. So they overlap, but I would say if you're pure software, if you're in gaming, for example, in gaming you will never go to the science park, you'll go to Cyberport. FinTech most likely plays, if you're not in the accelerator of a bank or simply, boom, with your office in the city, it will be Cyberport. If you're in, somebody said parking systems, there's a British company that our colleagues from London helped, they're in the science park, right? So and often companies will consider both, right? It depends a little bit. Greg, you can go deeper into content.
I want to underline, so you're very correct. Normally I should talk about Science Park and Cyberport. Paula already mentioned. I came more from the biotech sector, so I talk INT and this R&D thing and so on. But recently, Cyberport, I was so amazed not only about the software ICT companies, but they're creating new business models. There is a company called Animoca Brands. And they're in this Web3 area, tokenization, NFT thing. And they created a sandbox, it's a marketplace for this kind of new thing, even art, digital art. And I was so amazed, they have a portfolio of 200 companies worth like 2 billion US dollar, and even the auction houses like Sotheby's interested in that. They said Asian guys, they're tech savvy and they like the art and the top notch, they want the newest. And now the Asian population is 70% of the bidders for Christie's and Sotheby's and so on. So we're talking now about new things. I cannot even digest this with my brain. It's like a digitalization, Web3, this new approach and a digital economy. How can it be that the creative industries matching now with the fintech? Fintech is like pay solutions, but they say they want it. They want this tokenization. Even my son can understand it, but maybe I have to digest it in the future. But they're doing new business models, not even the Americans can do. There were local companies from Germany. They went to Silicon Valley. Say no, they don't do it. They don't get it. Why? Why Hong Kong? Because they do fancy things, fancy art, fancy application on the phone. Because they have this kind of pop manga, even in Japan, this kind of thing. They want to use things. So this is not my area at all. But I was really learning. It's not only about science parks, also Cyberport. Mingle with these guys. Maybe you get a new team partner. Maybe your COO, CEO. Funding partner, etc., and creating new business models. So I really would welcome you to talk to us, and not only about Science Park and Cyberport, also about other opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thanks, everybody. Have a good lunch. Any questions? Our booth is D26, and thanks for coming.